If you love sports, then you'll love Stats and Stilettos.
Yeah, my last two stars just, my last three stars just being, just walking out of guys, getting, behind the count too much and 3-2 counts, almost every hitter. So just, and make up a mistake today too, and just, need to get better and, more control. So just, hit my spot and throw more strikes and get ahead of the count.
Stats and Stilettos. This is Maya and Farouk. Ty is not with us tonight. We had some highlights there from, first it was Jake Peavy and then Francisco Liriano making excuses for why they pitched like garbage and have pretty much had an awful road trip in Baltimore and Detroit. Speaking of, that game has now ended in Detroit. Detroit wins that 4-2. So now the grabs for who's going to take the AL Central is now either Chicago or Detroit. They are now dead even. And let me just say this, by no means, I'm still not going to renege on the feeling that the White Sox still have the ability to stay in this. They're just not pitching well against Detroit. I'll be honest, from watching that little bit of that game that we got to see, Sale didn't look extremely comfortable. I hate listening to Ed Farmer and Darren Jackson on the radio.
Why you don't like?
Because Darren Jackson always talks about stuff I don't
Farmio.
want to hear about. I like Farm. I like Farmio, but
Okay.
Darren kind of works my nerves a little bit. I don't feel that Chris Sale was pitching because he was afraid of the batters. I think he was being overly careful, that he didn't want to give them something they could hit because he knows they're a good hitting team. I don't think he had any fear. He just realizes, I need to be careful. So I don't think he pitched an awful game in that series, but he didn't pitch well enough for them. Well, no, I can't say that. I'm not going to say he didn't pitch well enough for the one. They didn't give offensive support. At the end of the day, because up to at least the fifth inning, Detroit had not scored. They got one run in the fifth inning. Verlander was Justin Verlander and was able to keep the White Sox out of the game. And he was able to pitch long innings. So unfortunately, they weren't able to get anything going. And so now they've once again, the kind of a repeat of their last visit to Detroit after an East Coast road trip going through Baltimore. And I told you that Baltimore series was going to be key because Baltimore is in contention for trying to get into the wild card race. All those games meant something to them. And I'm not saying the White Sox played like it didn't mean something to them, but at the same time, they just didn't get it done when it's time, in the crunch.
All right. Well, joining us now to talk more about this is WVON media contributor Evan Moore. He also writes for Ball Sports, so you can check him out there. So, Evan, what the heck happened to these White Sox, man?
Yep, he's right. Just that. They didn't show up. They were silent, and they lost the game.
You there, Evan?
4-2.
Evan, you there?
There we go. Ooh.
Evan, are you there?
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing tonight?
It was a lack of runners in scoring position, and they put the starters in the bullpen position they shouldn't have been in. They needed way more runs in this series. They were going to even try to compete with Detroit.
Yeah, but where do you think it started from? Even forgetting about the Baltimore series. Okay, we went out there and lost 3 out of 4. The main thing on this series was Detroit. You go up there, the Friday night game, you're tied at 3 after Dwayne Wise gets hit. And you have the bases loaded, nobody out still. And you have the meteor order coming up. You have Euclid up. He lines out a hard hit ball. But then you have your big offseason acquisition from last year, Adam Dunn, who a lot of people like to say, well, yeah, he strikes out, but he does all this other stuff. He walks, but the guy's hitting around 200, and he comes up there and he strikes out and possibly his biggest at bat of the season on Friday night. It was a huge at bat because they had the bases loaded with 1 out. The game was tied. That was a momentum swinging little inning in this series.
It could have been a momentum swing, but it wasn't his biggest out of the season.
And it could have been. And then they came back in the bottom of that inning, and Johnny Peralta cracks a home run to give him the lead right back. It was pretty big, I think. What do you think, Evan?
Kevin Euclid all year, even with Boston against Detroit, he was 5 for 29, and all Sox fans, they know about Adam Dunn even before last year. He's boomer or bust. He's going to either hit a home run or strike out.
Exactly, and he tells you that when I'm at the plate, my goal is to hit a home run. And yes, we've said repeatedly, he does not have productive at-bats. His outs are not productive. I'll agree with you on that. But historically, he gets 200 strikeouts in a season?
You needed something in that situation other than a strikeout, though.
Well,
what about the rest of the series, though? Like last night, you got Max Scherzer dominating they couldn't do anything with him. And then tonight, Delman Young has just been the Sox undoing so far this year when they offensively against Detroit.
Yeah, he's been tearing off the ball ever since August 8th. He's been one of the best hitters in baseball since then. So I wasn't surprised he was going to, do pretty well in this series.
All right, so I'm looking forward now. Like the series is, they're tied first place, 72-61 now, 29 games to go. The Sox are literally, they're tied. But what about? Is it realistic to think that they can still win this thing? Just they can't be feeling too good about themselves right now. After
Why
this,
not? Why?
Why would they be though? Why would they be? The team that they're fighting with against, they can't beat them.
So I'm sorry. So they should just throw the towel in?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay,
But
I'm
the
just
team
checking.
that they're fighting to beat and to win this division against, they can't beat them in their building, and they've had a hard time beating them this year. They're 4-9 against them.
Robert, next week I want you to download Eye of the Tiger because I need to give Rook I need to build him up because he's just too negative Nancy. Really?
They're 4-9
Evan,
against a team they're competing
Evan,
with, and they've lost 6 straight games
What
in
is
their
your
building.
thoughts on this? Should you really think? I mean, granted, everyone said at the beginning of the season it's Detroit's division to win or to lose. Okay, and the Sox came along and honestly have surprised everybody. They have the ability to play good baseball. Evan, what are your thoughts?
Well, the thing that's kept the White Sox afloat over Detroit at this time of the year is their defense a lot better in Detroit. And also, what's probably not looking good on the White Sox side, you look at Detroit's upcoming schedule. They got Cleveland, they got Los Angeles, the Sox again, Cleveland again, Oakland, and Kansas City and Minnesota. Well, we've got virtually the same teams, but with the Devil Rays mixed in, and that's a team that's fighting for their own playoff spot. So they're not going to be they're not coming in to give up any games anytime soon.
So, obviously strength of schedule plays into this. It gets back to playing good fundamental baseball. Evan, one of the things that I've always kind of had an issue with since the beginning of the season has been the White Sox pitching. I mean, for what it's worth, you got to say that Chris Sale is their ace, and he's young. I mean, you're giving that title to a very young pitcher. So he's going to make mistakes. He's not always going to make the right choices. I'm not angry about that because he's still developing, but he's still the ace on the team. PV, like you said, PV and Gavin Floyd, their records are almost identical, and you wouldn't think that based on PV has been healthy the entire season. You just assume he's a better pitcher. To me, if they're going to come undone and not be able to make it in the stretch, it's not because they're not going to play good defense. It won't because they can't offensively score. I think it's going to be pitching is going to give up too much in games, and they just can't come back.
Yeah, you're going to see from all year. They have 8 to 10 rookies in the bullpen, and you see tomorrow they got Hector Santiago going tomorrow against Minnesota, and earlier this year he was the closer coming out of spring training. So you see they're trying to patch this thing together the best way they can, and they weren't expecting John Dank's arm to fall off either.
So you're looking at a team that has managed to stay in first in their division for a majority of the season, fighting through injuries and not having a pitching rotation that really has been consistent. To me, that speaks volumes on their resiliency, but at the same time, you do have to wonder, are their arms getting a little tired? I do question that a little bit. When you talk about, the Washington Nationals are looking at shutting down Strasburg in 2 more starts. So by September 12th, he should be off the roster. Do you look at Chris Sale and say, even though he's never been injured, is he maybe starting to get tired because of how much he's pitched? Is same thing with Peavy. Is he starting to maybe get a bit tired? He's coming back from an injury and a surgery that you can't really compare it to anything else. Do you think they're just starting potentially to wear down?
I don't think they're wearing down on the team. The White Sox are known throughout their minor league system and throughout baseball for not calling or babying pitchers. And for instance, you saw with Peavy, he's 4 for 5th in all of baseball, if I'm not mistaken, innings pitched. So that's not a problem. And I just think that this the past work, the pitching staff between that and the starters in the bullpen is maybe catching up to them. It may be it.
All right, but what about on the offensive side, though? Yeah, the pitching seems to be kind of it just doesn't look good, Evan, honestly. I'm not feeling real good about the Sox right now. They're having a hard time hitting the ball. Now, they've faced some pretty good pitchers the last few nights, and even in Baltimore, they made some of those no-names look like all-stars. Look like the Baltimore teams from the late 70s, Jim Palmer and Steve Stone, who I need to talk about a little bit later.
Yeah, you see the team is, if they don't hit home runs, they struggle to generate an offense otherwise, and their best bunter is Dwayne Wise, and it tells you that right there. And team like that who's all about the long ball in the American League, just kind of they struggle to generate any offense, and they don't hit home runs.
All right, so give us your last thoughts on this series and like going forward for the White Sox the rest of this year.
Well, if you were to ask most Sox fans in January how the season was going to turn out right now, they'd say you would have had an unhealthy relationship with bat salts to think that they're at this late juncture in the season that they're tied for first place in AL Central. You can't ask anybody to think that they would have thought of this at this point in the season. So it's an up and down season. It's a sprint. It's a sprint, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So I think they'll pull it out in the end.
All right, then. Well, Evan, thanks a lot, man. Tell everybody where they can find you.
They can find me on Twitter at FTF1978_EVMMOORE.
All right, thanks a lot, man. We appreciate your time.
No problem. Thanks.
All right, that's Evan Moore, WVON media contributor. He also on blogs for Ball Sports. I was saying something about Steve Stone, like he and Hawk last night. I love listening to them. They're my favorite broadcast duo in the city. But I had problems with them listening to them last night talking about Delman Young. He hit a ball that looked like it should have been a home run. It like hit beneath the little home run line in like left center field. So he kind of slowed down and went to his trot. He wound up getting in the third. And they were like barbecuing this guy, like saying he should have hustled, should have went harder. He could have got an inside the park home run. But this dude's been crushing the ball against the Sox all year. So I'm sitting there thinking like, man, the Sox just need to get this dude out. Like all this stuff this guy's been doing against the Sox. And you guys want to dwell on a home run that wasn't a home run. He wound up getting a triple on, and he still wound up scoring. The guy Garcia got his first major league hit with 2 outs to knock him in, so he still scored the run. And then tonight he gets the big 3-run homer again. He had big hits in all 3 games of this series, so I don't get where they were going with the whole Delman Young thing.
He's part of the 8 percenters, so they got to ride him a little bit. Hey, now that's something that people will be like, yeah, that's right. He's part of the 8 percenters. And if you don't know what that means,
I know.
It's the 8% of black people that play Major League Baseball. That number is declining every year. No, hey, I agree with a couple things. Robert, next song to put on to the queue, The Hustle. So it's about hustle. I'm like that too. I hate to see people hit a home run and look and watch it to see if it's going to go out, because you're right. You could have got an extra runner. That could be the difference maker. I mean, their team won regardless, but I do believe you'll know if it's not a home run if you get out.
That sounds like anger that the Sox aren't doing what they're supposed to do, so they're finding something on the other team.
No, but I agree with that. I don't like for people to not hustle, because those small things could be the thing that can cost you the game. And let's just talk about how the Sox are overall, stacking up. Understand, across Major League Baseball, the Sox and the Tigers pretty much have not the worst record in Major League Baseball, but in regards to contending teams, everybody, for instance, the Yankees are 76-57. Mm-hmm. The Rangers are 79-54. When you flip over to the National League, the Washington Nationals are 81-52. The Reds are 82-53. And then the Giants are 76-58. Weren't the Giants in town playing the Cubs this weekend too?
Yep.
So when you look at overall record, you have, even though they are the top 2 dueling teams in the AL Central, they're not really outperforming anybody else in Major League Baseball. So this kind of becomes a mute conversation across the board. It's like, I will say this, though, about the White Sox. They have played well against all those other teams, the Rangers, the Yankees. They played well against all these other teams. It must be something in their psyche about Detroit. Like, how the Twins used to get in their psyche and they played bad baseball. Yeah. And it seems like KC kind of rattles their chain a little bit. I think Detroit is just that team that's kind of under their skin a little bit. I don't think it's they can't beat them. I like to see how they play them at home. We haven't got a chance.
4 coming up.
We got 4 coming up. We haven't really, it seems like all we can remember, all the games that are in Detroit, they keep losing, coming off, a road trip and then going into Detroit. So for once, it'll be nice to see them playing them at home and how well they play. But the White Sox have beat credible teams, and that's why I haven't lost faith. Now, I'm a little concerned with the pitching in regards to figuring out this rotation, because now you got Liriano in, now you're running back through Santiago. There's so much juggling going on right now, and like Evan said, there was no expectation that Danks would not be pitching. But let me just say this too. As much as I love Danks and his country chew, because his country chew with that tobacco. It's funny. He already got hit in the head last year, and he's like, oh, okay. It's like, dude, you just got clunked in the head. What's wrong with you? But I'm not going to sit here and say that I think that Danks would be the answer, even if he was healthy. I clearly did not believe that Gavin Floyd was ever an answer to their pitching solution coming into the season, healthy or not healthy. So to me, you paid money to two people who, if you could have offloaded Floyd, you should have at some point. I'll stick to that. And now at this point, he has no real value. So I don't know what they're going to do with him, maybe except for write out his contract. But the bottom line this season, they're going to have to keep rotating outside of Sale and Peavy to figure out how they're going to make this work. And I'm like, that's a little distressing. Even though Lariano has given more than you would expect, Coop has got his hands full. Let me just say this.
Yes, he does.
If he gets him into the postseason, if you already don't think that Coop is the guru, you will think it after this year.
Much more on the Sox after this. Stay tuned.
Stats and Stilettos.
4 is 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Welcome back to Stats and Stilettos here on the Talk with Chicago, 1690 WVON. That makes me feel a little better hearing that song right there. Just because it's hilarious to me.
Okay. That's like, why does that make you feel better?
It's hilarious. But yeah, I'm not, Sox get swept. I'm not feeling real good right now. I have Maya and D in the studio with their positive attitudes, which is helping. Thank you. You guys get thumbs
being
up.
realistic about it.
But it's not realistic
right
in my eyes because right now the team that you're running with, you can't beat them. And you got to play them 4 more times, which means 4 more potential losses, which means 4 more games back.
But you're
and
play
then
them at home
then the season is over.
You have to play them at home for a change. And I'm not saying you got to be able to beat teams, obviously, when you're on the road. But they've also done that. They've beat some good teams. And that's why Detroit is just that kind of team that's under their skin. They're going to have to work through it. I'll be honest. Would I necessarily pitch Sale against Verlander? Maybe not. I figure, look at it this way. Verlander is tough to beat for anybody. I don't care what team you are. Mm-hmm. Do you want to waste the win and put Sale against Sale against Verlander? Maybe you need to let Peavy suffer that loss and give Sale a different start so he can get that win. I'm just saying, start to be a bit more strategic about it, especially when you talk about having Lariano and Santiago and some other pitching rotations. You're going to have to figure out what you're going to do moving forward. I mean, that part's a little scary, but that's been scary all year. I told you that from the beginning of the season. That this don't look good in regards to how they're having to rotate.
My problem with the Sox pitching isn't really I don't think their arms are tired or whatever. I think they nitpick. Like watching Peavy brought him up, they nibble on the corners and stuff too much. You know what I mean? They don't go right at people. Particularly you got Liriano. They're not aggressive in the strike zone. I think that's like the Sox main problem. You go to all of their pitchers. Thornton, they like to nibble. They try to make that perfect outside corner
Well,
pitch.
you know why? Because everyone's not like Verlander, who's mastered 4 pitches. Not to mention his, he has like his fastball, like he had one that was like 97, 98, or he can drop it down to 71. I mean, and he's got 4 good pitches. So his ability to command the plate is much different than if you only really have, let's say, 2 solid pitchers and a third good pitch, and your off-speed stuff, isn't as, deceptive as it should be. I mean, everyone's not like Verlander in that sense.
But no, I watch a lot of baseball. I think it's not necessarily exclusive to the White Sox, but they're one of the few teams that do it. They walk a lot of people. They have to be, I got to get this stat research, but they have to be in the bottom 5 as far as the most people walk. I think they walk an inordinate amount of people.
I think that's possible. I wouldn't disagree with that. And here's the thing. I expect that from Sale, given that he's a young pitcher really developing his overall repertoire of pitches. So I'm not shocked that he actually, I think he walked a couple. Hey, but what an interesting stat that started out the game, that De Aza was only the second leadoff hitter that had ever gotten a home run off of Verlander. So
it's good to have him back. Maybe that can pick up the offense a little bit. But why has it been doing good too?
I'm telling you, you don't like it, but Dunn missing was a big deal. People don't take him lightly. I know he strikes out a lot, but you realize that you got to be careful that you don't give him the right pitch. I know you just like the fact that he strikes out a lot and he's got, a low batting average. I get that. But that comes with the territory because of how many strikes he gets. But when he's in the lineup, I think it's a better, more powerful lineup.
That was a huge, huge, huge inning Friday night. And that was a huge, huge, huge strikeout. Just fly out. I'm not asking for a hit. I'm asking for a sacrifice fly. How much is that to ask?
Hey.
Is that a lot to ask?
Obviously it was, because it didn't happen.
But that was a huge inning right there.
Obviously, it would have been a better outcome. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I'm not disagreeing. It would have been a better outcome. But at the end of the day, when he's in the lineup, I think they're just a better team. I think that people pitch them differently, knowing you've got Dunn, you got Kernickle. They look at that like, I'm not going to try to pitch around one person to get to somebody else. But they just, once again, they just didn't. I said this last week, they really needed to go 50-50 on this road trip, and they didn't. They just had a horrible outing. I don't know what Uncle Buck is doing with the Oreos, but but the Orioles are trying to be in contention. Like I said, right now, in the wild card standing, the Oakland A's are leading it. They're a game. They're not even a game behind. They are like number one in wild card along with the Orioles. So I said that series with the White Sox for Baltimore was going to be like a playoff series for them, and that's exactly the way they played. Then you roll into Tampa Bay is a game and a half back in the wild card standing, and then Detroit and Chicago are both 2 games back because the leader of the division has not been decided. So either way, I mean, they're still right there. They're still right there in the mix of it all. But moving forward, every game, I mean, I said all these games counted. They can't afford to have mistakes. They just can't. They can't have any more series where they're swept. That's a no-no. I mean, Sale needs to get his wins. I mean, that's just PV needs to get his wins. Forget sitting in the bullpen and saying, look, he's talking. Don't talk to nobody. When you're out there supposed to be pitching, you need to win your game. It's great that you're coaching and you're building up morale. I love that, but that's not your job. Your job is to win the game.
All right, we're doing a little wrap on the Sox here. They went 1-6 on this road trip. Get swept by Detroit, the team that they're in immediate contention with. Now they're tied for first. 72-61 with them. 773-591-1690 is the number if you want to comment on the Sox. 773-591-1690. Andre out west. What's going on, Andre?
How you doing, my brother?
Not good, man. Not good at all.
No, neither am I. I'm not doing real good with the Sox laying a complete egg in this away series that they had with Baltimore and Detroit. But before I get started, I would love to apologize to my sister. We started off on a real bad note. You went after Tiger and you went after Barry, so that kind of got my dander up. But other than that, you've been right on, sister, and I have to give you credit. The Sox really did put too much into Glavine Floyd and Johnny Danks, and neither one of them have even been 15-game winners in baseball.
Exactly.
So I don't understand why they rested so much in those 2 pitchers, considering they was getting ready Burley. Peavy was coming off an injury, and they did not know what they would get with Sales. They just gave too much credit for these 2 guys to think that they was going to come through. And honestly, I think they wrote the season off, and the Sox just surprised them.
I would agree with you on that. Andre, I agree. I think they did not have the expectation that they would be performing and leading the division the way that they are. So now it's kind of like, oops, we didn't know we'd be here, so what can we do to salvage this? I agree with you on that.
Exactly, and I think the rest of the guys are just too young to have this much pressure put on them. Their bodies, to me, are not matured to that major league level where they can go 200-plus innings without breaking down, without getting a little pinching nerves and a little injuries like that, where they just can't keep up with proven veteran ball teams like Detroit.
What do you think is going to happen now, Andre?
I honestly think the Sox are going to hang in there. I just don't know if they have enough to pull it out.
All right,
I really don't think they have enough to pull it out, but I do believe they're not just gonna go away quietly.
All right, thanks a lot, Andre. As always, we appreciate it.
Today,
I think.
All right, have a good one.
Thanks, Andre. Like, well, you know what they say: pusher bursts pipes. That's what they say. You can only take so much before it's gotta burst. The question is, when does it happen? And it is a young team. I mean, it is, which is once again is an odd surprise because looking at last year, this team didn't quite look like this.
Yeah.
So it is young. I mean, there's a lot of inexperience. You expect composure, and we'll see what happens. I'm not gonna write them off because, as I said, their chances of getting into the postseason is just as good as anybody else's, especially Detroit's.
Something else, I got a lot of beef with a lot of stuff tonight. I got beef, even though this beef kind of got.
Where's the beef?
It got a little leaner because I was watching that Orioles-Yankees game today, and I saw something I hate Robin Ventura does. I saw Joe Girardi doing it, like over-managing. Like all this matchup for matchup. I see it like in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning, but like I saw Girardi doing it in the 5th inning. He used like 6 pitchers in the 5th inning or something like that today. And I see Robin tends to like try to match up like lefty for lefty, righty for righty, like in the middle of the game. You know what I mean? I understand they got the September call-ups now, so they got more people to, work with, a bigger roster to work with, but kind of let it breathe a little bit, man. I understand you're a rookie, but that's why I'm going to ease up on him a little bit, rookie manager and all that, but don't fall into that pattern of being the whole cookie cutter. lefty on lefty, righty on righty type of thing. Like, don't overmanage. And
I would
he,
like
he
to
kind
think
of
that's
tends
a
to do that
collective.
sometimes.
I think it might be a little collective decision because he is green and doing this. He's got to be taking, some of the direction from Coop and the bench coach. I don't think he's making all these decisions by himself.
Tell Coop to shove it sometimes. Man.
Leave Coop alone. I like Coop. No, but you're right. Sometimes it can be a little much. Just let the game unfold. I mean, because Sale pitched for 6 innings tonight, pretty much.
Oh, let me get the box score on this.
Yeah, he pitched 6 innings. Only gave up a run in the 5th. Verlander, of course, pitched 8 innings. So you're waiting for them to take him out, and hopefully you can get to somebody else. But he pretty much went the duration of the game. So it's just a matter of they made mistakes. They just didn't play well. Just like the last time they went on that road trip and they played Boston and then went into Detroit. They just didn't play well. And I'm like, it seemed like a lot of times the batters were overthinking and, but like I said, Verlander has such a complement of pitches that he puts out there. His off-speed stuff is just as good as his fast pitches. I mean, so you have to be a very methodical, hitter. And it's probably Adam Dunn. I don't know what he would have did up there with Verlander. He's just whatever. But you know what? Shake it off. You come home. You play the Twins. You get the wins to get back on track. Like I said, right now, it's an open division. They fell out of the first, but it doesn't mean by this time come Tuesday or Wednesday, they could be back in first place. That's the thing about the White Sox. They haven't fallen that far out of first. They've only been out of first, for a couple days?
Yeah, they're very resilient. It's just, like I said, I keep going back to my whole issue with this is it's Detroit. Like you said, they have played good against all the other contenders. They played them well, but except for Baltimore. I think they've only beaten them twice. They're like 2-7.
They've never seemed to play Baltimore well.
Yeah.
One of them teams, they don't seem to match up well and don't play well. Like I said, it must be something that Uncle Buck does. I don't know what he knows about the White Sox, but Showalter seems to pull it together and get it done. But like I said, in the stretch, we'll see what happens. I finally got on board. I told you I changed my relationship status to, from it's complicated to in a relationship with the White Sox. I'm not going to walk away from that right now, because it's a little tough, Farouk. Doesn't mean you should throw in the towel. Because everything isn't going according to how you think it should go. It's
just you got to play better against Detroit. That 4-game series is going to be even bigger than the 3-game series that they just lost now because of the way they play. They're bringing it on themselves.
But they're home. They're home, and here's what's good though. The White Sox, like you said, they bounce back really well. They never seem to spiral to the point where I think it's the Ventura mentality. Like, okay, let's just shake it off and keep going. Understand. If this was Ozzie coaching right now, I think it would be an entirely different situation.
Yeah, they'd be done. I agree.
I don't think they would even be where they are. I don't think they would have led the division as long as they have because there was so much drama that came with that manager who people would put, the mic in Ozzie's face just to hear what he would say about losing against Detroit. And then he'd go off on a tailspin and get to cursing and speaking Spanish and everybody would be like, what? So at least that distraction is gone. And I think that's why they get back to playing baseball.
Kelvin, what's going on? How you doing tonight?
Okay, how are you?
Pretty good.
Good. Listen, I love the White Sox. That's on my team, and I love Frank Thomas. He was the one that brought me into baseball. Every time. You could expect something good to come from the big herd. And, I'm so glad he decided to retire with the White Sox as well. Unfortunately, it happened with Detroit this weekend, but, I'm not worried because the Sox were just predicted to do much of nothing this year.
But Kelvin, I'm sorry for cutting you off, but I have a question for you and like other Sox fans who are saying that they weren't expected to do anything at the start of the year. Okay, we're September now. The expectations haven't changed for you now that you see that they performed above expectations.
Oh, absolutely. I want them to go to the World Series again.
Okay.
I have great expectations for this team, and now that I see the ability that they have to actually win the games, absolutely, I see no reason or no excuse at this point. The Yankees, I'm so glad they lost. I hate them, and I can't even tell you how much I hate the Yankees and Boston too. I hate them, but I love and the Cubs. There's another team.
Hey, I like you already, Calvin. There you go.
So, but I hope with all, not even against hope, because I really don't feel that eerie feeling when a Chicago team is on the way to the top that you feel, oh, they're not going to make it, and usually they don't. I still feel pretty good that the White Sox chances are great, and I believe they're going to take advantage and do what they got to do. I really do believe that.
All right, Kelvin, thanks a lot. We appreciate the call. I'm just, like I said, that kind of bothers me. Like, people are like saying since they're not any good or they weren't predicted to do anything, like it's okay.
No, it's
that
not.
It's not.
And I'll tell you, their September schedule is very rigorous because they come home from this loss against Detroit. They've got 3 against Minnesota that are at home. Then they get a break on Thursday. And then Kansas City comes into town for 3 games. Then Detroit comes into town for 4 games. Then they go to Minnesota for 3 games. And finally on the 17th, they get a break. The next 2 weeks are so loaded with games for them. And here's the thing. They are teams. They need to stop playing around with Kansas City and take care of business. They need to stop playing around with that, seriously. But there's no reason why they should not be able to take 2, of those games against the Twins. There's no reason.
Yeah, they've been knocking the Twins around now, but that whole thing, like you were saying earlier, has kind of shifted to Detroit now. So they'll probably sweep the Twins. And I think they'll get their stuff together against the Royals too. I think they're going to do all right against those first 6 games here this week coming up.
September is rough, and even after that break on the 17th, then they're like in Kansas City for 3 games. Yeah. Then they're out in LA or Anaheim for 3 games. And then they're at Cleveland. They come home for Cleveland for 3 games. And then Tampa Bay comes into town for 3 games. I mean, September is just, if they're playing good, fluid, baseball in the month of September, this could be when they can break out and really put together a good string of wins.
Yeah, because they only have, like, realistically looking at they have 3 tough teams on here. The Tigers, of course, Angels, and Rays. Mm-hmm. But they have the Rays here and the Tigers here. And if everybody, saying they're playing better here, then hopefully they win 1 game that's playing them better. So. But they can beat up on the Twins. They can get fed off the Twins and play better against the Royals. And then those Indians games, the Indians will be long done with the season by then. So they'll probably sweep
the season's
them.
Already over.
Yeah.
They're on the field now because they have to be on the field. So their season is long since it's been over. But you're right. But those matchups, like against obviously Detroit and the Angels and the Rays, are big matchups because all of these are playoff contending teams. These are all teams that are looking for postseason action.
That Rays series could be a playoff series, possibly more than likely with the last 4 games of the year.
I don't want this year,
fighting for something.
I don't want any more like 1 game deciding if you're going to the postseason. I can't take no more of them kind of games.
If that's how they got to get in, then do it. Then
I just want to like shoe in. I don't want no more special games. I just don't want that. I'm like, let's just do this.
That 163 though 4 years ago was so hype, man.
I know, but it was nerve-wracking, Farouk. I don't like nerve-wracking.
Brian Anderson to dive and catch at the end. That's one of my favorite White Sox games in my memory.
Brian
I
Anderson,
love that game.
Great fielder. Awful at the plate.
Terrible.
Oh, goodness. He always was hoping because he was such a good, after they let Aaron Rowan go, they never felt that void of center field. And then when they had Anderson out there, it seemed like maybe he had the mechanics to be good in center field. But at the plate, he just was awful.
More Sox talk. 773-591-1690 on Stats and Stilettos after this.
Hi, this is Maya Khan from Stats and Stilettos, AM 1690 WVON. We're at Country Club Hills Theater, where it was Dream Tour with David Sanborn and Brian Culbertson, who I have here with me now.
Hi.
Awesome concert.
Thank you.
And you were talking about Napa.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're gonna use this on our show.
Oh, sweet.
Tell me about
Napa Valley.
Napa Valley.
Oh, yeah. We're doing a wine and jazz festival. It's called the Napa Valley Jazz Getaway. And it's 5 days in June, the top of June 5th through the 9th. And it's wine tastings, dinners, jazz shows, all kinds of stuff going on. And we invite everybody to fly in for the 2 days. We got so much going on, so I hope you guys can join us.
I plan on being there next year.
Okay.
All right, so done. There you go.
All right. I'm Brian Culbertson, and this is Stats and Stilettos, 1690 AM WVON.
Welcome back to Stats and Stilettos. Find us on Facebook and like our fan page.
Welcome back to Stats and Stilettos on AM 1690 WVON, the talk of Chicago. You're on with me, Maya, and Farouk. Ty is out doing some kind of life-saving.
She's giving flu shots to Mongolian immigrants in the South Pacific.
No, I just saw her rolling the beach whales back into the ocean.
Oh, wow. Dang.
Ooh, see the magic of television in the studio, what that does? Ooh, no. So we, before the break, we're talking White Sox baseball and how the schedule unfolds. And we just, we're checking out even Detroit's schedule. And, it's similar opponents. They're playing, Cleveland after this White Sox matchup. Then they've got the Angels in L.A., They go on a road trip, then they come here. What's nice is they'll have a road trip in LA for 3 games, and then they come to Chicago for 4. So, you know what, just kind of like we had to do the whole thing in Baltimore and get a little wear and tear on us, and then go into Detroit, they'll kind of get the same kind of setting. And then they go to Cleveland after that. So they have a long stretch of
So they have a little 9-game road trip, 10-game road trip. Okay.
And then they get a little break on like the 17th of September, and then Oakland comes into town, who's also in playoff contention. They're going to play them hard. They then get 3 games against the Twins, 4 games against KC at home. And KC is one of those teams that no matter how good or bad they are, they play hard baseball. You never say that should be a win against Kansas City. Even though you should feel like it should be a win, you can't just say it's a win. And then they close out with 3 games at the Twins. So same opponents, little different design of their schedule. So it'll be interesting to see who plays good baseball through the stretches what it comes down to. Who stays healthy. And so far, I don't think that the White Sox, I think overall, outside of pitching, have stayed pretty healthy. We'll just have to see how they manage, how Robin manages to piece this all together, because I think pitching is really what they're struggling to figure out. And Gavin Floyd was given an assignment for rehabilitation. I was hoping it was going to be a little longer than that.
Well, the good thing for the Sox is they've been killing at home lately. They only have 9 road games left, and they've been playing outstanding at home. So they have all these home games left this month. So if they can continue on that tear they've been on at home, you see how my positivity has been building back up just listening to you guys in the break. We were talking about the Sox, and just talking to some of the callers and stuff. 773-591-1690, by the way, for that if you wanted to chime in on the White Sox talk we're having right now.
Well, we had to infuse you at the break with blood of faith.
But
my God.
I needed it because, man, like I was saying it last week, as long as they don't go 1-6 or 0-7, I'd be fine. And they went 1-6, and I wasn't fine. I wasn't going to feel good if they came back 1-6 from that road trip.
Look, the Sox really have not slumped, really.
Except for now.
Right now. But still, it's only a 4-game slump.
6 out of 7.
They've
lost. I'm sorry for being real anal about this, but
and you're right. I would prefer you slump in June or July opposed to September, but it's going to happen one way or the other. But they've done really well about bouncing back, and I think they'll be fine when they come home. It was a long road trip. They just didn't play good baseball. They have to regroup and figure out, what's going on. And I'm okay with that. I'm not writing them off because I felt they needed to perform well in Detroit, and they really should have won a game in Detroit. I mean, it looks bad, but hell, they lost against Verlander today. So, I mean, it is what it is. And you're right, Scherzer handled them too. So you're right. They've made a couple pitchers who really you shouldn't say, oh, wow, that's going to be an issue, made them look pretty darn good.
Some guy named Chris Tillman gave up 2 infield hits to them on Thursday, well, earlier this week, Thursday. And then they, like you said, they made some real average pitchers look like Cy Young. What's the whole Bruce Chen thing? That guy's 10-10. Somebody's hitting him. His ERA is over 4. Somebody's hitting this guy, but the Sox can't touch him.
Hey,
he's lost 10 games.
That's the intangibles that you can't explain, because baseball is very psychological. Just as much as for the pitchers, it is for the hitters. And it seems like the White Sox, they move in tandem. When they're hitting well as a team, they're hitting well as a team. When they're not hitting well as a team, it goes the same way. It's rare that somebody's hitting great and then somebody else is off. It seems like they just kind of, their ebb and flow is very in sync with one another, which could be a bad thing to a degree. Like, Rios just did not look good in this road trip. It's Konerko has not looked good during that road trip. So they need to come home and figure out, get back to the hitting mechanics of what's not right. And having to end, your road trip against Verlander doesn't help you. But you can say, well, it was Verlander. So, I'm not the only person that struggles with hitting him.
Well, we're going to have more Sox thoughts here, 773-591-1690. But, Maya, tell them we're doing stuff next week, next Sunday for NFL opener.
Obviously, everybody is ready for the NFL season to roll out. And next Sunday, September 9th, is when everything starts off. And so, we've been going out and about and doing different stuff, taking the show to the streets. And so what we're going to start to do, which is going to be a lot of fun, is we're going to be tailgating. But this is a different tailgating experience, because I know a lot of people, go to bars and they tailgate, or they go to somebody's house. We're actually partnering up with the Country Club Hills Theater, which we've been doing for a couple weeks, and we're doing a tailgating. So it'll be out at Country Club Hills Theater, which obviously is in Country Club Hills on 183rd Street. You come and you park, you bring your grill, your family, your food, anything you want, and we provide the entertainment, and the game will be on a Jumbotron. So it isn't like, a lot of times you tailgate and you don't really get to see the game.
Right.
You'll get to see the game. Plus, there's other flat screens around the establishment. Hey, and you don't have to use a porta potty because there's real bathrooms.
Wow, that's big.
So we're encouraging everyone to come out. It's going to be a really, really fun event. It's supposed to be like 73 degrees on that day. So I was like, why be cooped up in a bar or why be cooped up in a house when you can be having this experience outside with your family and friends? Like I said, bring your grills out. If you respond, and you want to hang out with Team Stats and Stilettos, we're doing a Stats and Stilettos VIP, and this is how you have to get involved. You have to make sure you go to our Facebook page and like it, and then you'll see the event posted on our page, and you need to RSVP that you're going to be at the event. Once you do that, you'll show up, and we have some special things in store for people who RSVP. We're going to have food. We'll sure and partake in some spirits with you,
Spirits? What do you mean by spirits?
Football is beer. Football is beer. So we're going to have food. There'll be some beer. There'll be a cash bar by Double Shot bartending. The twins will be there doing some stuff. We're going to be doing giveaways. We're going to have a DJ. So when you first get out there setting up, there will be live music. It's going to be a good time. So if you don't have plans or you're not sure what to do, you should come out to Country Club Hills Theater and hang out with Stats and Stilettos. So make sure, like I said, you go and like our Facebook page if you have not done that, which is Stats, A-N-D, Stilettos. RSVP. We're going to close that down about Wednesday because we need to kind of have an idea of how many people that we have to accommodate because we want to make sure everyone has a good time and we have everything that we need, and we'll go from there. So, but you can still, if you're just going to show up, that's fine. If you don't want to commit, I understand. But like I said, it'll be on Sunday. The gates will open at 9 o'clock, so you can get there. There's plenty of space to park. It's a nice sized parking lot. So we have everything arranged. It should be a really good time. I'm looking forward to it.
We're going to be out there all day, right? Till
we'll
about 6?
Yep, we'll be out there all day.
Yep.
And that's just some of the things. We also have upcoming game watches, like the Monday night stuff we're doing.
The Thursday night thing.
We're going to start out with the Thursday night Green Bay game on the 13th. We're going to be at the Tilted Kilt on 95th Street in, is that Oak Lawn?
That's on Chicago Ridge.
Chicago Ridge. So, that's a big game, too. So if you're free on that September 13th game against Green Bay, come out to the Tilted Kilt. We're going to then do all the Monday night games. And we have a special thing in store we're working on. I can't announce that yet until we get that squared away. That's going to be Stats and Stilettos After Dark interesting. That's going to be fun. So we definitely have some game watch stuff. I know the Tilted Kilt is going to be the destination for at least 2 more of those game watches. So mark your calendar because we're going to be out doing some stuff. There'll be prizes and giveaways. And by the way, the Stats and Stilettos t-shirt is the hottest going thing. People love that t-shirt. They're like, can I have that? Can I have that? Because our logo is hot. It is. And people are like, can I have that t-shirt? I'm like, you got to win it. So come out, get a Stat and Stilettos t-shirt, hang out and get to meet the crew. So lots of stuff going on. So for sure, mark your calendar for this Sunday, the Bears opener, September 9th, Country Club Hills Theater, starting at 9 a.m. for tailgating.
Hopefully they don't lose and everybody start flipping stuff over. Like, Bears, like it's
like I said,
like it's an English rugby match or something.
I cannot see them losing that game. And if it's even a close game, I'm not saying it's going to be a blowout, but there's no reason why. I mean, it's a good season opener against the Colts. You get to see Andrew Luck in action, who did very well through the preseason. But like I said, the Colts are in a rebuilding mode. I don't see why the Bears can't score at least 30 points with the offense they have in place. And the Bears defense should be able to handle Andrew Luck. They should give him something to think about. Like, this should be his welcome to the NFL. May I punch you in the mouth, please? Oh, did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. I believe in smash mouth football. I do. I think football is meant to be rough. Not dirty, just rough.
But I don't think Officer Goodell or Commissioner Goodell is agreeing with that, though.
And there's 2 interesting stories that came out this week about the NFL. Obviously, they're rolling in with the replacement refs for this first game because they have not resolved the labor dispute with the regular
That's going to be
refs.
a disaster.
And there's already been so many.
That's going to be a disaster.
I kind of feel bad for these guys because they look like a deer in a headlight sometimes. And they've made some notable mistakes in some of these games. But honestly, did you not expect that? These are not they are not Ed Hockley, who is the god of NFL referees.
Mike Greer.
And he's cock diesel. Like,
Mike
dude,
Greer.
I think, remember the year that Hockley came out and his uniform was tight? I think they told him next year, you need to either cut back on the weightlifter and we got to move up your uniform one size. Because he was buff. I was like, has Ed been bench pressing? Because he was like giving a call and I was like, his uniform is awfully small. But Ed Hockley, he's the man. And he's like, we need to get this resolved. So I hope this doesn't go longer than, let's say, the first couple games, because it's been some embarrassing calls. But on top of that, the other story about the NFL was how they're asking a judge to not rule against the concussions, and they wanted to say it's more of a labor dispute than a lawsuit. So the NFL has been in the news for some things. I'm like, that's interesting. They're saying under their collective bargaining agreements that they should be able to come to an agreement with these lawsuits, not in court, but based on what the CBA dictates. That's interesting. I was like, well, that's a take. I don't know. I haven't read the full CBA, so I'm not sure if that makes sense or not.
Another interesting story this week as far as NFL goes, this Saints thing could come down again this week with this judge possibly doing a late ruling to where the NFL wouldn't be able to overturn anything she did as far as revoking or kind of suspending the suspension, so to speak, with Jonathan Vilma and some other players, Scott Fujita and a couple of other players as far as that goes. So she might be waiting till early this week to possibly make her ruling on that. And once she reverses them, the NFL won't be able to do anything about it.
Do you think she's going to reverse them? I don't know. Here's my thing. I think by them not being able to get Greg Williams, is that his name?
Yeah, that's him.
I want to say Walker for some reason, but Williams. By him not really coming forward and saying a whole lot and being at the spearhead, to me, to a degree, it kind of exposes everybody else and being in the know.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say, I'm fully accountable. How do you, well, they knew that you had a bounty and had prices because they were partaking. So it'll be interesting to see how that ruling falls out. But the other thing that happened with the NFL is the new change to the injured reserve rule and the trade deadlines. Did you hear about that too?
No.
How they're looking at saying that pretty much you don't have to lose an entire season if you put somebody on the IR, which has in the past been once they've gone to the injured reserve that they really pretty much can't come back. If a player is hurt or put on IR after September 4th, they can actually return to the active roster 8 weeks after they've been designated. That's a big deal because now teams will manage their injuries probably a little bit different than they did in the past. So I thought that was kind of a big deal too in regards to some. So the NFL had a big week.
Yeah.
And the last story that we didn't cover, but I wanted to bring to you before we end the show, is how Tyler Hamilton, who was part of the Lance Armstrong, victory-winning Tour de France team, who happens to have a book coming out in concurrence with this, says, oh, yeah, he was the one who put me on PEDs. Just in conjunction with his book coming out. See how everybody has kind of their own notions and vested interests? That's what I'm saying. If you didn't say something when this started like 8 years ago, I have a problem with you saying something about it now.
Does this mean it's not true though?
Doesn't
Regardless
matter.
of all of that, does it? The truth doesn't matter. I think
here's
that's
my thing though. But how do the truth was the truth 8 years ago?
But okay, you're right. I'm not discounting anything you're saying. But does that? All I'm asking you is, does that mean it's not true now? Regardless of when they decide to say anything, the truth is the truth.
Well, the truth, it could be the truth, but the problem is it's always been the truth. So why did it take you all this time to say it? So now it seems like it's convenient because it's tied to your book release to have something to talk about in your book. It's kind of like the Jose Canseco thing. Obviously, there was some truth to it, and people didn't like it, and it launched a whole investigation. But my thing is, he knew this 8 years ago. You knew 8 years ago he gave you PEDs. Come on. Not HIV, not STDs, but PEDs.
It's the truth, though. I mean, that's really all. That's as long as it's the truth. As long as you're not lying. I don't care how long you hold on to it. It could be 30 years old. But
how
if
do
you
we
don't
know it's true? I mean, what do we have that says that Armstrong, he said when they were in his south of France villa, he was the one who said, hey, you need PEDs. And he popped open his fridge and look what I've got. I mean,
drugs.
A fridge full. Which one do you want? I don't know. It was an interesting weekend in sports. But the NFL is right around the corner. We are there now. Are you excited?
Wednesday night.
Think about this. So if you're a Chicago fan, you've got the White Sox surging. Cub fans, you guys can come along too. Now you've got football starting with a big expectation. And this is good because basketball is going to suck.
Yeah.
So we need this. We need this right now.
And something else is Sox, even if they don't succeed and pull this thing out, they have succeeded in getting us to football season.
Yes, they've made it interesting.
They've been very entertaining. So that's another positive thing. See, it only took me a few minutes to come around. You see that?
You put a little kumbaya in the mix, and all of a sudden it's right. So,
it only took me a few minutes.
Couple things before we wrap up.
Okay.
Obviously, don't forget our podcast airs every Wednesday at 5:30 at blogtalkradio.com, Stats A&D Stilettos. So if you happen to miss all this fun that we had tonight, you can listen on Wednesday. Of course, you can get any of our podcasts via Blog Talk Radio, Stats and Stilettos, or you can go to the iTunes podcast store, search Stats A&D Stilettos, and you can listen to all our shows MP3 and download that way too. So if you missed the shows, there's always a way you can listen. And don't forget, this Sunday, September 9th, starting at 9 a.m. to about 5 or 6, we'll be tailgating at the Country Club Hills Theater. Make sure you like our Facebook page at Stats A&D Stilettos, RSVP, so you can be part of the Stats and Stilettos VIP section.
Where Farouk will be looking for a turkey burger. I just refer to myself in the third person. But I will be out there trying
I'm glad you said that because we have catering and I didn't think about the turkey burger thing. But now that you've said it, I didn't think about it.
You'd try to put some pork on my fork, wouldn't you? See, look at you. Look at you.
The catering's going to be off the chain, too, by the way. It's going to be really good.
Really?
It's going to be really good. So I'm glad you said that because I wasn't thinking of you vegetarian folks. Because it's football. It's beer and beef.
And turkey burgers.
You two over there shaking your heads.
And turkey burgers and orange juice.
Go ahead and give thanks to everyone who participated in the show tonight, Farouk.
Oh, man. Wow. You know what? It was a true cast tonight, a cast of thousands, literally. Like, all right, let me see. Thank you to Lexus Wolford. Didn't see her tonight, but
And
she
Tamia
is our
Baker.
executive producer. And Tamia Baker. Didn't see her tonight, but they're out making miracles happen right now.
They were at the Kim concert.
Yeah,
Country
that's
Club
what I
Hills
mean.
Theater,
They're out there.
representing
They're
Stats
out
and Stilettos.
making miracles happen. They're doing some groundwork. So thank you to them. Thank you to Robert Chapman and Jonathan Garcia for manning the phones and manning that board. Robert on his maiden voyage on that board. You doing good over there, man? You all right? Okay,
He
cool.
did. He rocked it.
Thank you to Greg Baker and Malcolm Rockhold as well. You know what I'm saying? They were in there on the ones and twos as well, helping out, giving some pointers. Thank you to Demons on the camera, holding us down. Thank you to Maya. Thank you to Ty, wherever she is.
Rowing the whales back into the ocean.
So we got another big show planned next week. Make sure you come check us out. Sunday out in Country Club Hills.
Tailgating.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you to our guest tonight, AJ Harris from BlueDudeSportsTalk.com, for giving us the NFC North breakdown. Thank you to Evan Moore, WVON media contributor and Ball Sports blogger, for giving us some White Sox breakdown. No thank you to the White Sox for going out there and just ruining my week and growing me a couple of extra gray hairs.
It'll be
no thanks for
resurrected
that.
starting tomorrow. Don't worry
But
about
yeah, I'm fine now. Thanks to my guys, my people here in the studio for helping me out with that. Another riveting episode of Stats and Stilettos coming at you next Sunday. Peace.